The Gospel of Nicodemus, the disciple concerning the sufferings and resurrection of our Master and Savior Yeshua, some call Christ. Yeshua, our Messiah, accused to Pilate by the Jews of healing on the Sabbath, 9 summoned before Pilate by a messenger who does him honor, 20 worship by the standards bowing down to him. Chapter 1. Ananias and Caiaphas and Summons and Datum, Gamaliel, Judas, Levi, Naphtali, Alexander, Cyrus, and other Jews went to Pilate about Yeshua, accusing him with many bad crimes, and said, "We are assured that Yeshua is the son of Joseph the carpenter, land born of Mary, and that he declares himself the son of mighty God Ahiah and a king. And not only so, but he attempts the dissolution of the Sabbath and the laws of our fathers." Pilate replied, "What is it which he declares, and what is it which he attempts dissolving?" The Jews told him, "We have a law which forbids doing cures on the Sabbath day, but he cures both the lame and the deaf, those afflicted with the palsy, the blind and lepers, and demoniacs on that day by wicked methods." Pilate replied, "How can he do this by wicked methods?" They answered, "He is a conjurer and casts out devils by the prince of the devils, and so all things become subject to him." Then said Pilate, "Casting out devils seemed not to be the work of an unclean spirit, but to proceed from the power of mighty God Ahiah." The Jews replied to Pilate, "We entreat your highness to summon him to appear before your tribunal and hear him yourself." Then Pilate called a messenger and said to him, "By what means will Messiah Yeshua be brought hither?" Then went the messenger forth, and knowing Messiah Yeshua worshipped him, and having spread the cloak which he had in his hand upon the ground, he said, "Master, walk upon this, and go in, for the governor calls thee." When the Jews perceived that the messenger had done this, exclaimed against him to Pilate, and said, "Why did you not give him his summons by a beetle, and not by a messenger?" For the messenger, when he saw him, worshipped him, and spread the cloak which he had in his hand upon the ground before him, and said to him, "Master, the governor calls thee." Then Pilate called the messenger, and said, "Why hast thou done thus?" The messenger replied, "When thou sentest me from Jerusalem to Alexander, I saw Yeshua sitting in a mean figure upon a she-ass, and the children of the Hebrews cried out, 'Hosanna,' holding boughs of trees in their hands. Others spread their garment in the way, and said, 'Save us, thou who art in heaven. Blessed is he who cometh in the name of Ahiah.' Then the Jews cried out against the messenger, and said, 'The children of the Hebrews made their acclamations in the Hebrew language, and how couldst thou, who art a Greek, understand the Hebrew?' The messenger answered them and said, 'I asked one of the Jews, and said, What is this which the children do cry out in the Hebrew language?' And he explained, 'It is to me, saying, They cry out, Hosanna, which being interpreted is, O my master, my king, save me, O my Lord, my king, save.' Pilate then said to them, 'Why do you yourselves testify to the words spoken by the children, namely, by your silence? And what has the messenger done amiss?' And they were silent. Then the governor said unto the messenger, 'Go forth and endeavor by any means to bring him in.' But the messenger went forth and did as before, and said, 'Master, come in, for the governor calleth thee.' And as Yeshua was going in by the ensigns who carried the standards, the tops of them bowed down and worshipped Yeshua. Whereupon the Jews exclaimed more vehemently against the ensigns. But Pilate said to the Jews, 'I know it is not pleasing to you that the tops of the standards did of themselves bow and worship Yeshua, but why do you exclaim against the ensigns as if they had bowed and worshipped?' They replied to Pilate, 'We saw the ensigns themselves bowing and worshipping Yeshua.' Then the governor called the ensigns and said unto them, 'Why did you do thus?' The ensign said to Pilate, 'We are all pagans and worship the gods in temples, and how should we think anything about worshiping him? We only held the standards in our hands, and they bowed themselves and worshipped him.' Then said Pilate to the rulers of the synagogues, Do you yourselves choose some strong men, and let them hold the standards, and we shall see whether they will then bend of themselves? So the elders of the Jews sought out 12 of the most strong and able old men, and made them hold the standards, and they stood in the presence of the governor. Then Pilate said to the messenger, Take Yeshua out, and by some means bring him in again. And Yeshua and the messenger went out of the hall. And Pilate called the ensigns who before had borne the standards, and swore to them that if they had not borne the standards in that manner when Yeshua before entered in, he would cut off their heads. Then the governor commanded Yeshua to come in again. And the messenger did as he had done before, and very much entreated Yeshua that he would go upon his cloak and walk on it. And he did walk upon it and went in. And when Yeshua went in, the standards bowed themselves as before and worshipped him. Now when Pilate saw this, he was afraid and was about to rise from his seat. But while he thought to rise, his own wife, who stood at a distance, sent to him, saying, Have thou nothing to do with this just man, for I have suffered much concerning him in a vision this night. When the Jews heard this, they said to Pilate, Did we not say unto thee, he is a conjurer? Behold, he had caused the wife to dream. Pilate then calling Yeshua said, Thou hast heard what they testify against thee, and makest no answer? Yeshua replied, If they had not a power of speaking, they could not have spoke, but because everyone had the command of his own tongue to speak both good and bad, let him look to it. But the elders of the Jews answered and said to Yeshua, What shall we look to? In the first place, we know this concerning thee, that thou wast born through fornication. Secondly, that upon the account of thy birth the infants were slain in Bethlehem. Thirdly, that thy father and mother Mary fled into Egypt, because they could not trust their own people. Some of the Jews who stood by spake more favorably, We cannot say that he was born through fornication, but we know that his mother Mary was betrothed to Joseph, and so he was not born through fornication. Then said Pilate to the Jews who affirmed him to be born through fornication, This your account is not true, seeing there was a betrothment, as they testify, who are of your own nation. Ananias and Caiaphas spake to Pilate, All this multitude of the people is to be regarded, who cry out, he was born through fornication, and is a conjurer, but they who deny him to be born through fornication are his proselytes and disciples. Pilate answered Annas and Caiaphas, Who are these proselytes? They answered, They are those who are the children of pagans, and are not become Jews, but followers of him. Then replied Eleazar and Asterius and Antonius and James, Charis and Samuel, Isaac and Phinehas, Crispus and Agrippa, Annas and Judas. We are not proselytes, but children of Jews, and spake the truth, and were present when Mary was betrothed. Then Pilate, addressing him to the 12 men who spake this, said to them, I conjure you by the life of Caesar, that you faithfully declare whether he was born through fornication, and those things be true which you have related. They answered Pilate, We have a law whereby we are forbid to swear, it being a sin. Let them swear by the life of Caesar that it is not as we have said, and we will be contented to be put to death. Then said Annas and Caiaphas to Pilate, Those 12 men will not believe that we know him to be basely born, and to be a conjurer, although he pretends that he is the Son of God and a king, which we are so far from believing that we tremble to hear. Then Pilate commanded everyone to go out except the 12 men who said he was not born through fornication, and Yeshua to withdraw to a distance, and said to them, We have the Jews a mind to kill Yeshua. They answered him, They are angry because he wrought cures on the Sabbath day. Pilate said, Will they kill him for good work? They said unto him, Yes, sir. Then Pilate, filled with anger, went out of the hall and said to the Jews, I call the whole world to witness that I find no fault in that man. Then the Jews replied to Pilate, If he had not been a wicked person, we had not brought him before thee. Pilate said to them, Do you take him and try him by your own law? Then the Jews said, It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death. Pilate said to the Jews, The command, therefore, thou shalt not kill belongs to you, but not to me. And he went again into the hall and called Yeshua by himself, and said unto him, Art thou the king of the Jews? And Yeshua answering said to Pilate, Dost thou speak this of thyself, or did the Jews tell it thee concerning me? Pilate answering said to Yeshua, I am a Jew. Am I a Jew? The whole nation and rulers of the Jews have delivered thee up to me. What hast thou done? Yeshua answering said, My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, and I should not have been delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from hence. Pilate said, Art thou a king then? Yeshua said, Thou sayest that I am a king. To this end was I born, and for this end came I into the world. And for this purpose I came, that I should bear witness to the truth, and every one who is of the truth heareth my voice. Pilate said to him, What is truth? Yeshua said, Truth is from heaven. Pilate said, Therefore truth is not on earth. Yeshua said, Pilate, believe that truth is on earth among those who, when they have the power of judgment, are governed by truth and from right judgment. Then Pilate left Yeshua in the hall and went out to the Jews and said, I find not any one fault in Yeshua. The Jews said unto him, But he said, I can destroy the temple of God, and in 3 days build it up again. Pilate said unto them, What sort of temple is that of which he speaketh? The Jews said unto him, That which Solomon was 46 years in building, he said he would destroy and 3 days build it up. Pilate said to them again, I am innocent from the blood of that man. Do you look to it? The Jews said to him, His blood be upon us and our children. Then Pilate, calling together the elders and scribes, priests, and Levites, said to them privately, Do not act thus. I have found nothing in your charge against him concerning his curing sick persons and breaking the Sabbath worthy of death. The priests and Levites replied to Pilate, By the life of Caesar, if anyone be a blasphemer, he is worthy of death. But this man had blasphemed against mighty God Ahiah. Then the governor again commanded the Jews to depart out of the hall, and calling Yeshua said to him, What shall I do with thee? Yeshua answered him, Do according as it is written. Pilate said, How is it written? Yeshua said to him, Moses and the prophets have prophesied concerning my suffering and resurrection. The Jews hearing this were provoked and said to Pilate, Why wilt thou any longer hear the blasphemy of that man? Pilate said to them, If these words seem to you blasphemy, do you take him, bring him to your court, and try him according to your law? The Jews replied to Pilate, Our law said he should be obliged to receive 39 stripes, but if after this manner he shall blaspheme against mighty God Ahiah, he shall be stoned. Pilate said unto them, If that speech of his was blasphemy, do you try him according to your law? The Jews said to Pilate, Our law commands us not to put anyone to death. We desire that he may be crucified because he deserved the death of the cross. Pilate said to them, It is not fit he should be crucified. Let him be only whipped and sent away. But when the governor looked upon the people that were present and the Jews, he saw many of the Jews in tears, and said to the chief priests of the Jews, All the people do not desire his death. The elders of the Jews answered to Pilate, We and all the people came hither for this very purpose, that he should die. Pilate said to them, Why should he die? They said to him, Because he declares himself to be the son of mighty God Ahiah and a king. But Nicodemus, a certain Jew, stood before the governor and said, I entreat thee, O righteous judge, that thou wouldest favor me with the liberty of speaking a few words. Pilate said to him, "Speak on." Nicodemus said, "I spake to the elders of the Jews and the scribes and the priests and Levites and all the multitude of the Jews in their assembly, what is it you would do with this man? He is a man who had wrought many useful and glorious miracles, such as no man on earth ever wrought before, nor will ever work. Let him go, and do him no harm. If he cometh from mighty God Ahiah, his miracles, his miraculous cures will continue. But if from men, they will come to naught." Thus Moses, when he was sent by mighty God Ahiah into Egypt, wrought the miracles which mighty God Ahiah commanded him before Pharaoh king of Egypt. And though the magicians of that country, Jannes and Jambres, wrought by their magic the same miracles which Moses did, yet they could not work all which he did. And the miracles which the magicians wrought were not of mighty God Ahiah, as you know, O scribes and Pharisees, but they who wrought them perished, and all who believed them. And now let this man go, because the very miracles for which you accuse him are from mighty God Ahiah, and he is not worthy of death. The Jews then said to Nicodemus, "Art thou become his disciple, and making speeches in his favor?" Nicodemus said to them, "Is the governor become his disciple also, and does he make speeches for him? Did not Caesar place him in the high post?" When the Jews heard this, they trembled and gnashed their teeth at Nicodemus, and said to him, "Mayest thou receive his doctrine for truth, and have thy lot with Christ?" Nicodemus replied, "Amen. I will receive his doctrine, and make my lot with him, as you have said." Then another certain Jew rose up and desired leave of the governor to hear him a few words. And the governor said, "Speak what thou hast a mind." And he said, "I lay for 38 years by the sheep pool at Jerusalem, laboring under a great infirmity, and waiting for a cure which should be wrought by the coming of an angel, who at a certain time troubled the water, and whosoever first after the troubling of the water stepped in was made whole of whatsoever disease he had. And when Yeshua saw me languishing there, he said to me, Wilt thou be made whole? And I answered, Sir, I have no man, when the water is troubled, to put me into the pool. And he said unto me, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. And I was immediately made whole, and took up my bed and walked. The Jews then said to Pilate, O Master Governor, pray ask him what day it was on which he was cured of his infirmity. The infirm person replied, it was on the Sabbath. The Jews said to Pilate, Did we not say that he wrought his cures on the Sabbath, and cast out devils by the prince of the devils? Then another certain Jew came forth and said, I was blind, could not hear sounds, but could not see anyone. And as Yeshua was going along, I heard the multitude passing by, and I asked what was there. They told me that Yeshua was passing by. Then I cried, saying, Yeshua, son of David, have mercy on me. And he stood still and commanded that I should be brought to him, and said to me, What wilt thou? I said, Master, that I may receive my sight. He said to me, Receive thy sight. And presently I saw, and followed him rejoicing and giving thanks. Another Jew also came forth and said, I was a leper, and he cured me by his word only, saying, I will be thou clean. And presently I was cleansed from my leprosy. And another Jew came forth and said, I was crooked, and he made me straight by his word. And a certain woman named Veronica said, I was afflicted with an issue of blood 12 years, and I touched the hem of his garment, and presently the issue of my blood stopped. The Jews then said, We have a law that a woman shall not be allowed as an evidence. And after other things, another Jew said, I saw Yeshua invited to a wedding with his disciples, and there was a want of wine in Cana in Galilee. And when the wine was all drank, he commanded the servants that they should fill 6 pots which were there with water, and they filled them up to the brim. And he blessed them, and turned the water into wine, and all the people drank, being surprised at this miracle. And another Jew stood forth and said, I saw Yeshua teaching in the synagogue at Capernaum, and there was in the synagogue a certain man who had a devil, and he cried out, saying, Let me alone. What have we to do with thee, Yeshua of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? I know that thou art holy, or the Holy One of mighty God Ahijah. And Yeshua rebuked him and said, Hold thy peace, unclean spirit, and come out of the man. And presently he came out of him, and did not at all hurt him. The following things were also said by a Pharisee. I saw that a great company came to Yeshua from Galilee and Judea, and the sea coast, and many countries about Jordan, and many infirm persons came to him, and he healed them all. And I heard the unclean spirits crying out and saying, Thou art the Son of God. And Yeshua strictly charged them that they should not make him known. After this, another person whose name was Saturio said, I saw Yeshua in Capernaum, and I entreated him, saying, My Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of the palsy. And Yeshua said to me, I will come and cure him. But I said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof, but only speak the word, and my servant shall be healed. And Yeshua said unto me, Go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. And my servant was healed from that same hour. Then a certain nobleman said, I had a son in Capernaum who lay at the point of death. And when I heard that Yeshua was coming to Galilee, I went and besought him that he would come down to my house and heal my son, for he was at the point of death. He said to me, Go thy way, thy son liveth. And my son was cured from that hour. Besides these also many others of the Jews, both men and women, cried out, and he said, He is truly the Son of mighty God Ahijah, who cures all diseases only by his word, and to whom the devils are altogether subject. Some of them further said, This power can proceed from none but mighty God Ahijah. Pilate said to the Jews, Why are not the devils subject your doctors? Seeing of them said, The power of subjecting devils cannot proceed but from God. But others said to Pilate that he had raised Lazarus from the dead after he had been 4 days in his grave. The governor, hearing this, trembled, said to the multitude of the Jews, What will it profit you to shed innocent blood? Then Pilate, having called together Nicodemus and the 15 men who said that Yeshua was not born through fornication, said to them, What shall I do, seeing there is like to be a tumult among the people? They said unto him, We know not, let them look to it who raised the tumult. Pilate then called the multitude again and said to them, You know that you have a custom that I should release to you one prisoner at the feast of the Passover. I have a noted prisoner, a murderer, who is called Barabbas, and Yeshua, who is called Christ, in whom I find nothing that deserves death. Which of them therefore have you a mind that I should release to you? They all cried out and said, Release to us Barabbas. Pilate said to them, What then shall I do with Yeshua, who is called Christ? They all said, Let him be crucified. And they cried out and said to Pilate, You are not the friend of Caesar if you release this man, for he had declared that he is the Son of God and a king, but you are inclined that he should be king and not Caesar? Then Pilate, filled with anger, said to them, Your nation had always been seditious, and you are always against those who have been serviceable to you. The Jews replied, Who are those who have been serviceable to us? Pilate answered them, Your God, who delivered you from the hard bondage of Egyptians and brought you over the Red Sea as though it had been dry land, and fed you in the wilderness with manna and the flesh of quails, and brought water out of the rock, and gave you a law from heaven. You provoked him always, and desired for yourselves a molten calf, and worship it, and sacrifice to it, and say, These are thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. On an account of which your God was inclined to destroy you, but Moses interceded for you, and your mighty God Ahiah heard him and forgave your iniquity. Afterwards you were enraged against and would have killed your prophets, Moses and Aaron, when they fled to the tabernacle, and you were always murmuring against mighty God Ahiah and his prophets. And arising from his judgment seat, he would have gone out, but the Jews all cried out, "We acknowledge Caesar to be king and not Yeshua." Whereas this person, as soon as he was born, the wise men came and offered gifts unto him, which when Herod heard was exceedingly troubled and would have killed him. When his father knew this, he fled with him and his mother Mary into Egypt. Herod, when he heard he was born, would have slain him, and according sent and slew all the children which were in Bethlehem and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under. When Pilate heard this account, he was afraid and commanded silence among the people, who made a noise. He said to Yeshua, "Art thou therefore a king?" All the Jews replied to Pilate, "He is the very person whom Herod sought to have slain." Then Pilate, taking water, washed his hands before the people and said, "I am innocent of the blood of this just person. Look ye to it." The Jews answered and said, "His blood be upon us and our children." Then Pilate commanded Yeshua to be brought before him, and spake to him in the following words: "Thy own nation hath charged thee as making thyself a king, wherefore I, Pilate, sentence thee to be whipped according to the laws of former governors, and that thou be found bound, then hanged upon a cross in the place where thou art now a prisoner, and also 2 criminals with thee, whose names are Demas and Gestas." And we're going to stop at chapter 6, and we will continue with chapter 7 tomorrow. Thank you for listening.